Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you how to make this hidden tang knife out of a file. This knife is a hidden tang knife, and if you don't know what that means, it basically is so that the actual tang of the knife, which is the handle, goes inside the wood of the handle, so it's hidden. This knife is more complicated to make, and I'd also say it's a little bit harder to make than just a normal full tang knife, and I've got a tutorial on that, so if you're a first time knife maker, I'd recommend going and checking out my other tutorial on the full tang knife. There'll be a link in the description so that you can find it easily. So as I said earlier, this knife is made from an old file, and it's really sharp and really hard. You can also make it out of other metals and stuff like that, but it needs to be a high carbon steel for this method. This knife is really good for whittling, and I'm able to carve some really intricate bark carvings with it in some sticks. I'll tell you all of the different tools and equipment needed to make this knife as we go along in the tutorial, so let's start to see how you make it. It was almost a year ago when I first decided that I wanted to make a hidden tang file knife. So the very first step that I did was I took an old file which was really blunted down and not very much use to me at all, and then I put it in my forge to anneal it. This process softens the metal, and it's not essential, but it makes the knife much easier to work with. If you don't have a forge, you could also probably heat it up with a large propane torch or something like that. The aim of this is to heat up this part of the file which you're going to be using to make the knife until it's glowing, and then you need to leave it out in the air just to cool down. The problem with this is that this was a new forge which I made recently, and I didn't know that it would get this hot, and I accidentally managed to melt off the bottom edge of the file. As you can see, I've melted it. Oops. That wasn't meant to happen. So now a year later, and I've decided that it's time to take up the project again because I kind of forgot about it. So I drew out a template onto some paper of what I wanted to make. At this point you may be looking at the knife and thinking that's absolutely nothing like what I was looking at the beginning of the video, and it actually is nothing like it was at the beginning of the video, and you'll see why later, because later on in the heat treatment process I actually managed to melt the whole front part of the knife, which was really stupid. The most important part about this knife design is the short stubby bit coming out the bottom of the handle, and that's essential for this knife blade. You definitely need to do it if you want to make the hidden tang knife the same way as I'm making it. So the next step is to take the softened file over to a clamp or a vise or something like that, and it needs to be clamped down, and we're going to start cutting out the shape. Since the file is going to be heat treated later, we can let it get as hot as it likes, so I'm just going to be cutting out with an angle grinder that has a thin cut-off wheel. Of course, since angle grinders are really dangerous, wear all of the necessary safety equipment if you're going to be using one. I then continue to roughly cut straight lines, which is going to vaguely outline the shape of the blade, and these don't have to be exact to the lines, they should just be a little bit further away, and I'm going to grind the shape of the profile later. So I've got the knife down to the basic shape. I'm now going to start grinding it into the more precise shape which I want. For that I'm going to be using my bench sander, but if you annealed the knife properly you could just use files or any other assortment of power tools that you want. The most important thing is that once you're done with this, the knife should be exactly like you want it to be on the outline. Once that's done, this is what the knife looks like. It's in the exact shape of what I want the outline to be of the final knife, and I'm going to start looking at making the handle. So for the bulk of the handle I'm going to be using this thick steel rod. I'm basically going to be using my angle grinder to cut a slot down the steel rod, and then I'm going to be putting the knife blade steel in between that. So first what I need to do is draw on lines where I want to cut the slot to. Once that's done, I'm then taking my angle grinder again with the thin cut-off wheel, and I'm going to cut all the way down to the bottom of those lines. After that's done, I'm then taking a chisel and I'm hammering it in so that the two pieces of metal are forced apart. I then keep on shaping it with files until I can pretty much fit the knife right to the bottom. I then continue to hammer on the steel rod and widen the groove in the two pieces of metal so that it will fit either side of the knife. I've then gone and taken a solid carbide metal drill bit and drilled all the way through the metal and the knife so that I can put pins in like this. These snug fitting pins will make sure that the knife won't wobble about at all against the handle. This is what it looks like once the pins have been sanded down. Now taking a regular Sharpie pen, and I'm colouring in all of the front of the blade which I want to sharpen. I then clamp up a small work file, and then I start to run the edge all the way down it, and I've clamped up the file in the perfect size so that it's going halfway through the knife steel. Once I've finished running the knife up and down it, it leaves a perfect line in the Sharpie right down the middle of the blade. Then I'm going to go over to my sander and hold the knife at the angle which I want to grind the bevel. This can be determined by what you want to use your knife for. For me, I'm going to be using it for whittling and bark carving and things like that, but if you want to be using your knife for chopping or splitting wood and stuff like that, or bushcraft, then you want it to be a little bit blunter and a less aggressive edge. For this knife, I'm just going to be doing a flat grind, and that means that the grind is just going in one direction and it's not curving or anything like that. So I've now ground the edge on one side, and as you can see, the ground edge comes and meets that line which I drew coming up down the middle. Then go over to my sander and try and hold the knife blade at the same angle as I did last time, but I'm doing it on the other side. While I'm grinding the knife, I try to make sure that it grinds off an even amount on either side. I also want to try and make sure that it looks symmetrical and that there's no jaggedy lines that take out bits of the blade. I'm going to keep on grinding this side and the other side until they meet up directly in the middle and form a bird edge. Once the knife is done, it looks like this, and already I can see it looks really nice. I'm now going and taking a file and some sandpaper, and I'm just going to slightly remove some of the tops of the jagged edges which were on the file. You can get rid of the file patterns completely if you don't want them, but I quite like leaving them there since it gives the knife a really unique homemade look. Extra polishing and sanding can then be quickly done using a sanding drum. Once that's done, this is what the knife looks like, and it's a really nice cross-hatching effect. This step is optional and you don't have to do it if you don't want to. I'm basically just going to be creating that wavy line which you can see at the very beginning of the video going down the spine of the knife, and this is called file work. This does nothing to the functionality of the blade, and it just makes it look a lot nicer. And if you're not confident with doing this step, it's really easy to mess up, so don't bother giving it a go, because the knife will still look really nice even if you don't do it. Basically what I've done here is I've taken a Sharpie pen, and then every ½ centimeter I've marked on a horizontal line going perpendicular to the knife blade. I'm then taking a triangle file, and I'm just filing in a little groove on every other line. Then using a rat tail file, I'm making a circular indent into the metal. As the circles go down the blade, they get less and less until they fade out to nothing at the tip. As per usual, using a worn down sanding drum, I remove the pen. This is what the blade looks like once it's finished, and I think that it looks really nice. So thanks for watching, guys. This video is getting quite long, and congratulations if you've managed to make a knife that's got this far. But I'm going to split this video into 2 parts, and the second part will be in a link in the description down below. Leave any comments down below saying if you like this video or not, and also what you want me to make in a future project. And if you did enjoy this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.